Welcome back. We've been looking at figurative language and we were looking at the simile. In this segment, we're going to be looking at metaphor. A metaphor is a figure of speech where one thing is described as if it were something else. A sustained or extended metaphor is a metaphor that goes on over a few lines. You can be asked to find a metaphor in a text. Identify it, explain it, and discuss why it is effective. So let's try to do that with some lines from Shakespeare. Come, thick night, that my keen knife see not the wound it makes, nor heaven peep through the blanket of the dark to cry, hold, hold. This is Lady Macbeth planning to murder King Duncan. Let's look at the lines again to make sure that we understand them. She's calling on thick night, really thick darkness. Why? She says so that her sharp knife does not see the wound it makes. She's going to stab King Duncan or maybe cut his throat, something really awful, and she doesn't want the knife to see the wound. Nor heaven, God, to peep through the blanket of the dark, to see, to look through the blanket of the dark, to cry, stop, stop. Let's start by finding the metaphor. Can you find the metaphor in these lines? You're going to work on it as if you were looking for a simile, but remember, it won't be shown by as or like or than. You're looking for the metaphor. You're looking for one thing being described as something else. Go down to this. Is she talking about blankets? No, she's not. She's talking about the night. But she says, come thick night, so that God cannot see through the blanket of the dark. So the dark or night is being described as if it were a blanket. So you start with your pattern. In this metaphor, something is described as something. So you'd say, in this metaphor, night is described as a blanket. What's our next step? Same as we were doing with the simile. Discuss the ideas you associate with a thick blanket. You are looking for the connotations of blanket. So let's look at that. Blanket is thick. It covers the bed or the person. Under the blanket, it would be dark. All light would be blotted out. A blanket would make everything dark. You won't be able to see properly. Now let's put that into a sentence. In this metaphor, night is described as a thick blanket. A thick blanket would stop any light from getting through. A thick blanket would cover something completely. What does night have in common with a blanket? They both are associated with stopping the light from getting through and with covering everything. Let's put this into a sentence. A thick blanket would cover something completely and would stop all the light from shining through. In the same way, night would stop all light from shining. It would be very difficult to see what is happening. Now we want to take this a step further. We've identified, we've explained, we've done some discussion. Now let's take it another step. The metaphor shows us that Lady Macbeth wants darkness to cover the world so that no one can see what she is doing, not even herself. She does not want anyone to see the murder of Duncan. A related figure of speech to metaphor is personification. Personification is a figure of speech where the writer talks about something that is not alive, like plants or animals or objects, as if it were a person. We say that this thing or animal is personified. Let's look at this example, also from Shakespeare, but a different play. Night's candles are burnt out, and jocund day stands tiptoe on the misty mountain tops. And jocund means happy or glad. Day is described as jocund, happy or cheerful. In this personification, Day is seen as a happy person standing on tiptoe on the tops of the mountains. And remember, we'd be standing on tiptoe like that because we'd be very eager to come up or to look out over the tops of the mountains. So the sun, daylight, is seen as very eager to get into the world. More on figurative language in our next segment.